Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the University of Southern California ROTC Students and Veterans Dinner. Please stand and welcome the head table. Dean of the USC School of Social Work, Marilyn Flynn. Director for the USC Center for Innovation and Research on Veterans and Military Families, Anthony Hassan. Chairman of the USC Board of Trustees, Edward P. Roski. Major General Robert C. Kane and his wife, Katie Kane. The President of the University of Southern California, C.L. Max Nikias and First Lady Nikki Nikias. Team Lead, San Marcos Vet Center, Joe Costello and Dana Costello. USC Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Elizabeth Garrett. And USC Dean of Religious Life, Varun Soni and his wife, Dr. Shakti Soni. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Marine Corps Band. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the invocation by the USC Dean of Religious Life, Varun Soni.
In his famous address at Gettysburg, President Abraham Lincoln wrestled with the difficulty of dedicating that battlefield as the final resting place for Civil War soldiers who fought and died there. For Lincoln, words fell short of capturing the enormity of their valor and heroism, which had already consecrated and hallowed the ground at Gettysburg. In the face of their eternal sacrifice, Lincoln tasked those who remained, the living, to honor the fallen soldiers by fulfilling their legacy through the building of a more perfect union. In Lincoln's eloquent words, "It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who have fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." This evening, let us take these timeless truths from Gettysburg to heart and reaffirm that we will honor those who died for our freedoms by rededicating ourselves to civic engagement, national service, and the sacred ideals of our constitutional democracy. Let us carry their precious gifts of love, honor, duty, and loyalty with us in our lives and in all that we do. Let us cherish their memory, which remains here with us as a blessing for all of us. And let us say together, amen.
Please remain standing for the March On of the Colors, honors for Major General Robert C. Kane, and the playing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We would like to take this time to recognize the service members in the audience. When your service song is played, please stand and be recognized. The United States Army. The United States Navy. The United States Coast Guard. The United States Air Force. The United States Marines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chairman of the USC Board of Trustees and First Lieutenant Marine Corps Reserve, Edward P. Roski.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank that Marine Corps band. You know, every time I hear it, it just shivers come up my spine. It's just fantastic. So, again, thank you and thank them for sharing their time to come up here with us. And now I'd like to begin with a few introductions and to welcome our distinguished guest. First off, I'd like to welcome Major General Robert Kane and his wife, Katie. Major Anthony Hassan, U.S. Air Force retired, and his wife, Nikki. Chief Warrant Officer Joseph Costello, U.S. Army Reserve and MSW candidate studying military social work at USC. You'll have an opportunity to hear from each of them this evening. Their leadership and their courage inspires us, and I know we're all grateful that they joined us. I also want to acknowledge my fellow trustees, Barbara Rozier and her husband Roger, Jane Popovich and her husband Chris, and Lorna Reed. Finally, I want to acknowledge the members of USC's senior leadership, beginning with our president, CL Max Nikias and his wife, Nikki. Elizabeth Gareth, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. Robert Abel, Senior Vice President for Finance and Chief Financial Officer, and his wife, Judy. Robert is very important because he is our paymaster, so we like to always give him recognition at these events. I'd like to thank all of you for taking part in tonight's celebration, for joining us to honor the veterans, the reservists, the student veterans, and the ROTC students of the University of Southern California. I feel very privileged to have this opportunity as Chairman of the Board of Trustees to pay tribute to their many contributions to our university, our community, and our nation, and we salute you. To the students, I say, through your service, you bring honor to yourself, to this university, and to the remarkable tradition to which you belong. It is in this spirit of gratitude that we honor you this evening. We have planned a traditional military ceremony. This custom, the hosting of a formal military banquet, spans centuries, dating from the legendary warriors of Troy to today's Trojans of USC. Last year, we began this tradition and is one we hope will continue for generations to come. The format of these events has its roots in those created by our British cousins. Take, for example, the popular tradition of the parading of the beef. We call it the main course over here, for approval of the president of the mess, a custom we will observe this very evening. The band of the Royal Berkshires always paraded the main course to the thumping of a Russian drum captured during the Crimean War. These rituals are a ceremony that connect us to our past and to one another in the present. They construct a bridge that crosses generations as well as branches of service. They speak to the reverence with which we hold our customs and our community. And they build a spirit of unity, reminding us that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves, something noble. The tradition and values of the United States Marine Corps have served as a touchstone in my own life, and I feel deeply proud to have served my country. My most enduring friendships were formed during my time in the Marine Corps. And who am I today? My view of the world, my ethics, my sense of duty, these were all formed during my time in the Marines. It was then that I learned the value of respect, the importance of discipline, the meaning of loyalty, all of which form the foundation of effective leadership. This is a point I emphasized last year, and it bears repeating. We need great leaders. We need leaders with the strength of character and the courage of convictions that military service inspires. No matter what branch of the military, no matter what rank or in what capacity one serves, military service imparts the critical lessons of leadership. It serves as a dynamic, real-life classroom for those who wish to accept the responsibilities of leadership. It's particularly effective when combined with a first-rate education. When I speak of education, of preparing tomorrow's leaders, of nurturing the world's doers, I turn quickly to the world-class experience we offer at USC. Trojans are renowned leaders, and the very mission of our university trumpets our commitment to leadership, not only to our community and our nation, but around the globe. Of course, to appreciate the quality of leadership at USC, you need not look beyond this very room. The veterans and reservists among our faculty, staff, and alumni symbolize the virtues of exceptional leadership. They embody the truest, purest ideals of the Trojan spirit. USC is so proud of its history of military service and the great leaders who have emerged from the ranks of our Trojan family. Brigadier General Stacey Harris, the first African-American woman to reach the rank, came out of our Air Force ROTC program. And General Charles Bolden, a Marine, a famed astronaut, USC trustee, and the current administrator of NASA, is a proud alumnus of USC. Our long history of educating veterans has produced a battalion of great leaders, from athletics to politics, from cinema to social work. Consider retired General Norman Schwarzkopf, who commanded the coalition of forces during the Persian Gulf War. He received his Master of Science in Engineering from USC. He remains one of our nation's most highly decorated military leaders. And when he spoke in Bovard Auditorium, he was inspiring, and he reminded us that character is the essence of leadership. Character is paramount among military values, and it is paramount among Trojan values. Remember the values inscribed on the granite on which Tommy Trojan stands: faithful, scholarly, courageous, skillful, and ambitious. And I know these words have particular meaning for the USC veteran servicemen and women, as well as its ROTC cadets and midshipmen. You are not only our country's defenders, you are our nation's future leaders. You form an elite, gifted group. You have the experience in the U.S. military and an education from the University of Southern California. What a combination of experience and expertise. You will stand truly prepared for all of life's battles. Whatever you choose to do in life, be it on the battlefield or in the boardroom, in service to your country or your community, you will shine as proud veterans and proud Trojans. You will keep our nation safe and secure, allowing us to do our work, to make our contributions, to live our lives. For this, we are forever grateful. I commend you as fellow comrades in arms, I salute you as fellow Trojans, and I celebrate the legacy that is yours to uphold and the future that is yours to command. I thank you, and fight on. And now I have the honor of introducing one of this evening's distinguished guests, Dr. Anthony Hassan. Dr. Hassan came to USC in 2009, joining our School of Social Work. He serves as the inaugural director of the Center for Innovation and Research on Veterans and Military Families and chairs our Innovative Military Social Work Program, a jewel among USC's many stellar programs. He's a retired Air Force officer with 25 years of experience in military social work and leadership development. In 2004, he served during Operation Iraqi Freedom on the first ever Air Force Combat Stress Control and Prevention team that was embedded within a military unit. Please join me in welcoming to the podium Dr. Anthony Hassan. Doctor.
Good evening, everyone. What an honor it is to be here, and I always say when I get in front of a group like this, if my friends could see me now. I'm at USC, and I'm leading a great program with a great dean and a wonderful staff that really is committed to serving veterans and military families, and I couldn't have asked for a better job. I've actually traded in my blues, and I'm wearing Trojan colors now. Quite proud of those, actually. But I do want to thank President Nikias, Provost Garrett, and Ed Roski for honoring us veterans, ROTC, and those in the reserves. I mean, this is fabulous. What university really does this? So let's give them a round of applause. This is also a special evening because our guest officer is Major General Kane and Mrs. Kane from the Air Force, so I feel close to home. Having left the Air Force Academy, and I know you're at the Air War College, so what a great honor it is to have you here today to share this evening with me and my colleagues and friends. Finally, I want everyone in the room to know that Dean Marilyn Flynn has been the visionary for the School of Social Work, especially in the area of supporting veterans and military families. There's no other school of social work in the nation who has committed the time, energy, and resources to what we're doing. No, Nate, no one. We are the national leader, and we are leading the way for all, and it's because of Dean Flynn. Look what she started, huh? Let's give her a round of applause. I was just curious, are there any Marines in the building? Well, you know, I spent 11 years in the Army, so I was wondering if there were any Army in the room. Hoorah! Hoorah! What about my Air Force colleagues? And of course, we have some Navy folks. And I know we have 3 Coast Guard men. I love you all, and I'm so glad to serve out of uniform. So I really wasn't supposed to take this much time, so I'm just going to get to what I'm supposed to be doing. I could be a rebel now that I'm out of uniform. But I do want to introduce to you an exceptional veteran student in our program. Our program is the first in the nation, and we're putting out over 200 master's degree social workers with a specialization in military social work. You talk about building capacity in communities that really have zero competence and understanding of how to interact with veterans. I mean, civilian providers do not get it, but this school is pushing out almost 200. In the next 6 months, we'll have about 60, 70 that have graduated, and we have 200 in the pipeline. We have 5 ROTC students. So we are the only school in the nation that's creating capacity in those who can care for our veterans and know what they're doing. And it's my passion and commitment to make sure that those that we graduate get it. That when they work with a veteran, that veteran is going to come back because they know that that social worker understands them. that is critical. And so Joe Costello, who I'm going to introduce to you, is one of our exceptional veteran students in the program. Joe Costello is a team leader at San Marcos Vet Center, has been employed by the Department of Veteran Affairs since 1994. As like all of us, he's carried many jobs in his career and has served in many capacities, and he began his career at the VA in Honolulu in the substance abuse program, where then he was transferred to the VA in San Diego healthcare system for alcohol and drug treatment in 1996 and became part of the San Marcos Vet Center team in 1998. Vet centers are the place we like to go as veterans because they're located in the community and they're less stigmatizing, and they don't keep charts and notes on us, but they help us and get us connected. So vet centers are critical in reaching out to the veterans in our community, which is what we're most concerned about. Prior to his employment with the Department of Veteran Affairs, Mr. Costello was a substance abuse counselor in Hawaii. That was tough duty, I'm sure, Joe. Yeah. He began his military career with 8 years of active duty service in the Navy, and he received his Navy Expeditionary Medal for participation in an Iran hostage rescue mission. Mr. Costello returned to military services after a 9/11. He felt the calling. He became an Army Reserve paratrooper. He was called to duty in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, where he received the Bronze Star Medal and Combat Action Badge. Upon redeployment, Mr. Costello went to Warrant Officer Candidate School and served as a Human Intelligence Warrant Officer in the United States Army until he retired just recently, and I didn't even know that, Joe. Congratulations on Christmas Day 2010. Let's give him a round of applause. And finally, Joe, has a bachelor's degree already and a master's degree, and it just is bizarre to me that he would want to get another master's degree, but his passion has always been to come to USC and get a master's degree. So here he is in our inaugural program in the military social work concentration, receiving his master's degree in social work this May 2011. He'll be a graduate, and we're so proud of him. Joe Costello.
Good evening. I am honored and humbled to be present here and to be a part of this. President Nikias, Major General Kane, Mr. Roski, Provost Garrett. It's somewhat intimidating to be up here as a young junior warrant officer. I'm not a young warrant officer. As a junior warrant officer with such greatness. I would like to recognize, and I am loath to do it, but the Marines really do it right. They really do. Don't get me wrong, I love both branches of the service that I served in, but that Marine Corps band was outstanding, so I appreciate that. Truly. But aside from that, we're better. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. As I said, it is somewhat intimidating to be up here, but I also feel a sense of comfort because I know I'm in a room of people who are involved in service, that they've dedicated their lives to service and they're committed to service in whatever context. We have an amazing school, and I sometimes can't believe that I'm a part of it. I was introduced to the USC School of Social Work a few years ago, actually, when Dr. Jose Cole and Colonel Reyes came down. They were building community partners in North San Diego County. USC was branching out, and I met these folks, and they shared Dean Flynn's vision of a military social work program. And I thought that was pretty cool, but I never really considered this for myself. As I said, I was pretty comfortable in my career. I had a graduate degree, and I never really wanted, after graduate school the first time, I couldn't imagine doing it again. So some of you folks that are graduate social workers with me understand that it has not been an easy task, even though we approach graduation pretty soon. There were a couple significant events. Our deployment, like many people's deployments, was, had its ups, it's had its downs. There were scary moments, there were funny moments. It was a wide-ranging deployment experience. Upon return, I returned back to the Vet Center and resumed my career serving veterans. The Vet Centers are part of the VA that provide counseling services for combat veterans and their families. And we work a lot with combat operational stress, but any range of readjustment issues. A very significant event happened. It was a couple of years after I got back, and I just want to mention two names, because this really was the catalyst for my interest in returning to education. Sergeant Frederick Ryan and Staff Sergeant Stephen White. These two men served their country like many people in here served their country. They served in a combat zone. One served in Iraq, and one served in Afghanistan. And Stephen White served side by side with me in Afghanistan. They successfully completed their deployments. They served with honor, dignity, pride, and courage. Upon return, both of those men took their own lives. And I knew them, and I knew them well. And I knew that they had been seeking services and trying to get back on track, resuming a civilian career. And I, for the life of me, couldn't figure out why. And I had associations with them both personally and professionally as they came to different VA activities for services. But I thought, what was I missing? Was I missing anything? I didn't know. But clearly something was wrong when men and women can go serve overseas and come back and not make a successful readjustment to the point where they choose suicide. And you know, we all know in this room that the suicide rates are remaining pretty steady. It's unfathomable, and it's unacceptable. It was at that point that I called Dr. Cole and said, Dr. Cole, is it too late to enroll in the School of Social Work? And this was, I believe, end of June. They had already done early admissions, and we were at the wire. So he and Colonel Reyes graciously drove down to my vet center, gave me a packet of information, and said, get on that statement of purpose and start writing. You got a couple days. Well, I was able to do that and get it in, and consequently was accepted to, in my estimation, the greatest school in the world. Absolutely, it truly is. We are fortunate to be at this institution, because here's what I found at this institution. The University of Southern California is a school on a mission, and I think that's something everybody in this room can understand. We understand mission. Dean Flynn's vision is a mission. What has come about since the beginning has been a group of dedicated scholars who are dedicated to serving folks like us, service members and their families. And it's really been amazing. My personal experience at this school has been amazing. It's been challenging, it's been rewarding, it's been frustrating. If I had hair, I would have been pulling it out. I know, it's a look. It happens. All you young bucks out there, it's gonna happen, believe me. So like many in the room, I will approach graduation in May 2011 with, and I promise this, no more degrees. I want to stay home with my family. It was part of the reason for retirement, to make that choice and to continue my service, but with a different focus. I have been so proud to wear the uniform of my nation. It's been amazing. It truly has. And I'm equally proud to serve in the Department of Veterans Affairs and serve returning veterans. Because that is a mission that through my experience, in some ways may be bigger. At least it is for me. If I can make a difference in one person's life, if they can stay on this planet one more day, then I'll feel like I've done my job. But I just don't, there you go. I don't want to see that happen again to anybody. So I think something that soldiers can understand is that I remain a man on a mission. My mission is consistent with USC's mission and the School of Social Work's mission, so it makes it a little bit easier. But again, I am very, very proud. I would like to close with one last thing, because it's my personal belief. I have no evidence. There's been probably no research done, but I believe that we've benefited from a specific cohort of veterans, and please believe that every veteran. There was a World War II veteran that, the last World War I veteran died this past week. What an amazing life. Every group of veterans that have served peacetime or in war is special and important. But I think there's been a change in culture that was precipitated by the Vietnam experience. Vietnam veterans returned home to nothing. Society didn't treat them too well. I know my colleagues in the VA did not treat them too well. They really got a raw deal. And they took the bull by the horns and they changed things. They didn't take it lying down. The image of the Vietnam veteran on the side of the road, that's not true. This has been the most successful group of returning veterans in our history. And they have done us a service because we don't see the same experience now as we return from war zones. Whether people agree with the war or not, they still treat us with dignity and respect. And that is something that I never want to forget, and I don't want anybody to forget the Vietnam veteran experience for that. And I know our chairman of the Board of Trustees, Marine Corps Vietnam veteran, my uncle, a Marine Corps Vietnam veteran. Are there any Vietnam veterans in the room? Thank you one and all for making it better for us. I appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel Ingersoll, Lieutenant Colonel Kirkland, and Lieutenant Colonel Ohta.
Joe, on behalf of all the Trojan family and our veterans and the ROTC students, we want to thank you for those words of encouragement and for all that you do for the Trojan family. Semper Fi.
Thank you
Best
much,
of luck.
sir. Appreciate it.
Wow. How cool is that?
Thank you so much, sir. Beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Parade of Beef.
My other job. No. Serve the dinner.
bench for the reading of the POW MIA significance. Cadets, Samuel Anderson. Midshipman, Blake Smith. Midshipman, Kyle Faraday. And Cadet, Bradley Head.
As you entered the dining area, you may have noticed a table at the front, raised to call your attention to its purpose. It's reserved to honor our missing loved ones. The table represents Americans still missing from each of the services: Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. They are commonly called prisoners of war and missing in action. We call them our brothers and sisters. This table symbolizes that they are with us, here in spirit. Some in this room serve proudly next to these brothers and sisters in combat. However, all of us should never forget the brave men and women who answered our nation's call to serve. Please pause for a moment of silent remembrance.
The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our brothers and sisters. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against their oppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions when answering the call to duty. The candle is the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, out of the hands of their oppressors and into the arms of a grateful nation. Remember.
The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of their lives and the loved ones who keep the faith, awaiting their return. The vase is tied with yellow ribbon, a symbol reminiscent of the yellow ribbons worn on the lapels and breasts of thousands who bear witness to our nation's committed determination to account for our captured and missing. Remember.
A slice of lemon on the plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in a foreign land. A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears shed by them and their loved ones. Remember. The glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to share in this evening's meal. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember.
Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your dinner. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for this evening's toasts. Please refer to your program card for responses.
Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to the Commander-in-Chief. A toast to our guest of honor this evening, USC's ROTC students and the veterans. A toast to all the spouses. All the spouses.
Mr. Chairman, a toast for Chairman of the Board, Ed Roski, President of USC, TL Max Nikias. Mr. Chairman, I propose a toast to our special guest, Major General Robert Kane.
To Major General Robert Kane. To our colleagues.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman Ed Roski.
Again, I got this great duty, you know, on the beef, and now march on the cake.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is customary at military celebrations worldwide for service members to cut a traditional cake in celebration of the birth of their respective service. Tonight, the oldest active service member is Major General Robert Kane, and the youngest cadet is Laura Starling. They will cut the cake in celebration of all those at USC who have served, continue to serve, and will soon serve our country. The passing of the cake from the oldest to the youngest service members symbolizes the passing of history and traditions to the next generation.
Take it back.
Thank you, sir.
Retire the cake.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the University of Southern California, C.L. Max Nikias.
Good evening, everyone. Before I introduce Major General Kane, I have this great pleasure of announcing a major milestone in the history of the University of Southern California. So I am thrilled to tell you what you're going to read in the LA Times tomorrow or on the LA Times website tonight. I'm thrilled to tell you that USC has received the single largest gift in its 131-year history. And this gift is for $200 million. It's an endowment naming gift for the USC College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. So this is not only the largest naming gift in the history of the university, it is also the largest naming gift in the history of American higher education for a College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. Yeah. So on March 23rd, we will hold a naming celebration on campus in the Bovard Auditorium. From that moment on, USC's college will forever be known as the USC Dana and David Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. So this historic investment by the Dornsifes in USC's humanities, social sciences, and sciences will be both transformational and inspirational. What is even more remarkable is that a gift of this magnitude comes during such a challenging time for so many in higher education, especially for the humanities and social sciences. Dana and David Dornsife are an extraordinary couple, but it is their extraordinary generosity that has ensured that they will forever stand proudly as an inspiration to current and future generations of USC students and faculty, including ROTC students. So I would like to begin with a few words about our host for this evening, Mr. Edward P. Roski, Jr. USC is so fortunate to have an individual of Chairman Roski's caliber leading its Board of Trustees. In essence, he is my boss. He is a first lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. Yes. And he was also awarded 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star for his valiant service in Vietnam. Yeah. It was his support that made this event a reality 1 year ago, and I know we all want to acknowledge his leadership and his dedication to our community and our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ed Roski. A Marine is always a Marine. This is an inspiring evening, and I hope you are enjoying the spirit and the camaraderie in this room. I know the traditions touch us all very deeply, and as we gather together, we can sense the tremendous pride USC takes in its men and women who are part of the United States military. So many veterans stand among our faculty, our staff, and our students, and we salute their service to our nation and to protecting our livelihood. We also take pride in the members of USC's Reserve Officers Training Corps programs. USC and Notre Dame were the only 2 universities that maintained their relationship with ROTC back in the 1970s, and we are very, very proud of that. Yes. And finally, I also want to acknowledge the family members of our military personnel. As everyone at USC knows, the arms of the Trojan family extend very wide, and this evening we also commend your support and your sacrifices. Tonight, we salute the people at USC who have contributed so much to our nation's security. I also want to salute the extraordinary research that the university does to support our nation's defense. I will offer just one sterling example: our Institute for Creative Technologies. ICT creates simulated environments that are used for training in our nation's security and defense. It brings together a diverse array of fields: engineering, computer science, cinematic arts, education, communication, and social work. And it's a vital bridge between the Department of Defense and the entertainment industry. Where else is this possible? Only at the University of Southern California. Earlier this evening, you heard from Dr. Hassan, and I also want to acknowledge our military social work program housed in our School of Social Work. But tonight, we're joined by the school's dean, Marilyn Flynn, and she really deserves one more round of applause. Thank you, Marilyn. This pioneering program answers a very real and significant need in our society. It prepares social workers to support our nation's armed forces personnel, military veterans, and their families as they manage the pressures and adjust to the post-war life. This program receives national attention, but even more importantly, it's bridging that gap between military and civilian communities. It's reaching out to those veterans and military families who may have been forgotten in the past, and we applaud its outstanding work. On behalf of the university, I want to thank everyone here for being a part of this special evening. Together, we send a strong message to USC's veterans and our ROTC students. We tell them how much we value their service and their sacrifices. And I know I speak for the entire room when I say that message comes straight from the heart. So now it is my privilege to introduce our next speaker and distinguished guest, Major General Robert C. Kane. General Kane has been selected for reassignment as Director of Global Reach Programs in the Office of the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition at the Pentagon. He is Commander of the Spaatz Center for Officer Education and Commandant of the Air War College at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. General Kane entered the Air Force in 1980 after receiving his commission through the ROTC program at Grove City College in Pennsylvania. He also received a master's degree in systems safety from the University of Southern California. He's a Trojan. And more importantly, there's Sam Michael. He's a graduate of our School of Cinematic Arts. Where are you, Michael? I want you to stand and be recognized. Major General Kane has served in Turkey, Korea, Germany, and Iraq, and was the commanding general of the Coalition Air Force Transition Team in Baghdad, Iraq. General Kane has received a number of prestigious awards and decorations, including a Distinguished Service Medal. USC is so pleased to have Major General Robert C. Kane among its esteemed guests and, of course, alumni this evening. So please join me in warmly welcoming Major General Kane.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's really a distinct honor for Katie and I to join you this evening as we pause to recognize all who have or will have dedicated themselves to the defense of our nation, our way of life, and a concept simply known as freedom. Thank you for inviting me. This has really been a pleasure. I have not seen this much support for the military, the armed forces, from a college since I joined 31 years ago. So my hat's off to you. This has really been an outstanding evening. I also have to acknowledge that USC did play a very big role, as the President said, in my early professional development. When I got my systems management degree, I was actually stationed in New Hampshire, and it was a distance learning type program, but actually, from my perspective, it was one of the best ones that was out there, particularly for military professionals. And what I learned over that 2 years as I studied under some great professors that would come from USC or would come from Boston or other areas, entrepreneurs, folks from the business community, I learned a different way of thinking and a different way of thinking about the world and how you bring all things to bear on a particular problem. And it served me well, obviously, over the last 25 years. So my hat's off to USC for the education that you bring to the fight and the way you bring it to the young cadets and everybody else who has served. America's all-volunteer military is truly a national treasure, as you know. It's tested daily, and it's made stronger by the diversity that we find in its ranks. We are truly a cross-section of all of the country. What might be lost in the daily fight that these guys go through is actually how long they've been doing this. For most people, they don't realize that when we started Desert Storm in 1990, since that time, the Air Force has been constantly at war. That's 20 years. We never came home from some of those places over there in the desert. I've recently retired some lieutenant colonels that have known nothing but combat service the entire time they've been in the military. That's significantly different than what we've seen in the past. Since 2001, we've challenged the Marines and the Army to an extreme point. The naval forces are out there too doing their thing. We have put a lot of stress on our armed forces, and as we've seen from the military social works department and what they're doing, this is going to come home potentially to roost, and we're going to have to take care of these folks for a long time in the future. A lot of stress that's been on these guys over the last 20 years. Tonight, as we are here enjoying this dinner, we have our colleagues, our comrades in arms, are actually engaged in combat operations. We know that we have America's airmen, soldiers, sailors, and Marines out there on the front lines tonight. In the highest mountains out in eastern Afghanistan, there's a lonely soldier. There are trainers and advisors in Iraq today trying to stand up and assist the fledgling security forces of Iraq to secure their country. We have folks in the Marines and the naval forces out there fighting pirates off of Somalia. That's kind of a new one. And maybe most importantly, we have some forces that are in Haiti providing medical care to orphans from the earthquake that struck that country last year. And all of those forces are enduring separation from their families. As the President mentioned, the families also go through some extreme hardship in all of this activity that the forces are doing around the world. And what all this does is remind me briefly, what I'd like to do is show you some of those forces. Last year, my previous assignment, I had the privilege, and it really is an absolute privilege, to command America's sons and daughters in combat. And that is the most sacred trust that we give military officers, particularly senior ones. And I took that extremely seriously. If you don't mind, I would like to join you out there, maybe a little closer as I talk about some of the things that I saw last year or in my previous assignment, and how well these folks are performing. Our job, Mike? Is that good? Our job in Iraq was to stand up the Iraqi Air Force. And we had done a pretty good job in 1991 and then again in 2003 of destroying the Iraqi Air Force. In 1991, during that war, we took out basically all of the fixed-wing airplanes. And so these guys had not flown for like 15 years. In 2003, we took out the most of the rest of the stuff, like the rotary wing airplanes. So we eliminated all their helicopters. So in 2004, when we started this effort to rebuild the Iraqi Air Force, we had 35 officers and 0 airplanes. This team here represents this is about 60 guys, represents about 350 folks that worked for me in this endeavor. They were part of a broader team of Army trainers, Marine trainers, police trainers, intelligence trainers, basically a part of a team that was standing up the entire Iraqi security apparatus to secure their country. This is an endeavor that was equivalent to rebuilding the entire police force and while you were securing California, because that's about the size. Iraq is about the size of California, and you have about 100,000 police officers in California and about 20,000 Marine and Air Guardsmen, National Guardsmen. We were trying to train over 600,000 security forces to secure the country from what it was going through, particularly from 2006 and 2007. This team represents soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and civilians. You can't tell from this picture there, but there's a woman in there who's more than 60 years old who came to help teach English language to the Iraqis. There's a gentleman in there in the picture that's also over 60 years old. He was a historian, and he was there to capture what we were doing and how we were doing it, because this work is extremely important, and it's something that the Department of Defense is trying to improve on as we go forward. This notion of building partnership and partner capacity. So this was you may have seen this, crossed swords. Some of you that have served over there would have recognized this, but many times on TV we would have seen Saddam just off there to the right in that amphitheater with his gun up in the air, shooting bullets into the sky. Okay, next. There's 3 things. This job that I did last year was the most rewarding of the 30 years that I had. And there's 3 reasons why I say that. This is the most rewarding professionally and personally. The first reason was the absolute pleasure that it was to work with the senior leaders of the coalition. These gentlemen and women did the most amazing job of including every aspect that you could imagine into this fight. We had sociologists, we had historians, we had anthropologists, we had medical experts. Anything you could imagine, the boss was willing to bring into that fold and put into the fight. And that was an extremely important aspect of the success of this whole thing, as we tried to help Iraq secure its own country. If we had discounted or left out some aspect of society, it may not have worked as well as it did. And you guys are well aware, because you teach, you educate a lot of this stuff. It's all very important, and it all has to be brought to bear on the problem, or it just won't work as easily as it did while I was there. The second thing was the absolute professionalism and performance of the young guys, and the way they operated in an environment that was extremely hard, and in many cases they had not been adequately trained for. And this here is an example of that. In the middle of that picture, there's a just about behind me, I'm just kind of standing there in the front, is a Captain Brian, is what we'll just refer to him as Captain Brian. And he was a helicopter pilot. Now, I didn't fly helicopters. And what we asked these guys to do in terms of training the Iraqis to fly helicopters was very unique. Now, he's used to flying a US-made UH-1 helicopter out in the missile fields of Montana. And what we did was we said, hey, Brian, we're going to teach you, you're going to go teach Iraqis how to fly Mi-17s. We don't have Mi-17s. So what we did was we sent this young officer to Ukraine for 5 weeks. And we said, you go learn how to fly this Russian-made helicopter that we don't have any. And when you get back, we're going to send you to Iraq for a year. And you're going to teach Iraqis who barely speak English using an electronic communication system that hardly functions at all. And I wanted to see what that was like. So I went to fly with Brian and his Iraqi crew one night. And those are all Iraqis. Iraqis manned the engineer station. Iraqis manned the guns that protected us during the flight. And we went out and flew. And I wanted to challenge Brian so he could show me exactly what he had been trained to do. And I wanted to know whether he was safe when I went out there and asked him, when I sent him out there to do a mission. And so we took off about 30 minutes before sunset. And we flew around. He taught me how to hover and go backwards and forwards and then land the helicopter. And as that was happening, the sun was going down. It was getting dark. And so we continued. And he taught me how to do this in the dark. And then after it got really dark, about 30 minutes later, he handed me a pair of NVGs, night vision goggles, which you guys have seen. It's like attaching 2 video cameras to the front of your face. And we proceeded to do it some more. And all this is going on. This kid's got this all under control himself. And then we proceeded to fly out into the desert and land on some small postage-sized pieces of concrete with no lights on. That's the kind of skills that your soldier sailors, young soldier sailors, airmen and Marines, bring to this fight every day. They're the most well-trained, well-educated force that we have possibly ever seen. And that right there is an example of one of the best. Okay, next. The third thing that made this the best assignment that I ever had was the relationships. And it wasn't just the relationships that I built, the camaraderie that was built between my team and ourselves together. It was about the relationships that our team then went on to build with the Iraqis. Because at the end of the day, what this was really all about was building a relationship with the Iraqis that hopefully would last for a long time at the strategic level. It wasn't just about us teaching them how to fly airplanes. This was about helping them to choose to become strategic partners with the United States well into the future. And we did this in many ways that are in some cases quite surprising. And this is what this picture represents. We had an opportunity after I had gotten there, and I had been there for a few months, for General Anwar, who, the gal in the blue, the bright blue shirt, is my sister-in-law. General Anwar, the commander of the Iraqi Air Force, is standing next to him. My brother's next to him, and then the next 2 officers are also Iraqi generals. We went to my brother's house. And so we had several generations of the Kane family welcoming these Iraqi gentlemen, a Sunni, a Shia, and a Kurd. You can mix that up almost any way you want to, and they were that combination of folks. Very tough thing to do. We put these guys in my brother's home with several generations of our family and made them part of our family. And that's the new brothers. This was extremely important because of the way they operate culturally. And for me to welcome him into my family essentially established a bond between the two of us that is not broken even today. Who do you think? Anybody want to take a guess at who the best air advisor in this picture is? It's the one all the way over on the right, who's my mom. There's things that my mom could say to that general that nobody else in the American government could say. And I can tell you, she said it all. And it was a great evening. And that is another aspect of what's going on around the world that your service members are engaged in every day. Building partnership capacity and building friendships that hopefully will prevent wars so that we don't have to fight them in the future. I could go on all night because this was, like I said, the most rewarding, fun thing I'd ever done. But I'll end it because I'm the last guy. There's a lot of things going on around the world. After I did this, I came back, as the president said, to teach in a college setting. I'm basically like a college president. And my responsibility is to train the future of the armed forces. And in the college that I have, we have 250 most senior leaders, Army, Air Force, Marines, Naval officers, Coast Guard. We have 44 international students from 43 different countries that are all learning how this military national security thing works. It was a pretty smart idea to send me back to do that. Why I'm saying that is I want to let you guys know that we are all in good hands. The folks that I've seen this past year, about essentially 5,000 officers, is unbelievable. The quality, the discipline, the education that they have, and most importantly, the experience is possibly the best we have ever seen in history. And that's your armed forces. The other thing... The other thing that I would like to say is I am extremely impressed with the young folks that are standing up to take on this mission in the future. I can't think of anything more selfless than for these folks, like the cadets we have in the room here tonight, that are signing up to do this business in wartime. They know that they are going to be put in harm's way after they get their commissions. And I can't think of anything more selfless than to stand up and dedicate themselves to the defense of our country in wartime. So my hat's off to you guys, and good luck. I look forward to seeing you guys out on the flight line. And lastly, and the president said this, the families we have to think about. These folks are also a national treasure. And what we ask them to put up with is something that we need to all remember and be mindful and take care of them. So as you've embraced our ROTC cadets and the veterans, embrace their families, because they're a major part of this thing, and we wouldn't be nearly as successful as we were without their love and support back home. At the end of the day, what I want to say is thank you. The programs that you're putting in place here are going to have a huge impact on a very large number of folks that have made huge sacrifices for our defense. I didn't realize the extent to which you guys were involved with this kind of work. Dean Flynn, this is really important. Thank you very much for doing that. And finally, again, thanks. Katie and I have had a wonderful time. This has truly been a treasure. We'll treasure this forever. And God bless you all for what you do every day in supporting those who defend our country. out there on the front lines.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel Ingersoll.
Well, I think we've all had a great time. So, would you please stand for the benediction?
This year, it was my pleasure to work closely with the president of USC's undergraduate student government, Christopher Chang, who is the first student president in USC's history who is also ROTC. Through my conversations and interactions with him, I came to know and admire USC's many ROTC students who courageously and collectively embody the best of our cherished military values and Trojan values. Indeed, their dedication and determination inspires me and so many on a daily basis. So it is now my honor and privilege to bestow upon our ROTC students and veterans a blessing, the traditional priestly benediction from the Book of Numbers. May God bless you and protect you. May God look kindly upon you and be gracious to you. May God reach out to you in tenderness and grant you peace. And may we all say together, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Trojan Marching Band. Ladies and gentlemen, the USC Alma Mater will be performed by Brandon Hynum and the Trojan Marching Band.
Our country stands in majesty.